I must be hungry. I need to eat. But no, that's not the time to eat. You need to let the stomach clear out and clean out, and that's where all the cleaning happens. And a normal small intestine is cleaner than your hands after you use a antimicrobial soap, for example. That if you measure the amount of bacteria per square centimeter on the small intestine compared to what's on your finger after you wash your hands, it's 10 times as much on your hands. Your small intestine is sterile. Why is that important? Because
hello, everyone. Welcome to our Healthy Heart webinar. Today, we're going to be talking about the Healthy Heart Solution Kit, but we'll also be talking about everyone's favorite topic, fasting. Yay! But important.
I had a patient in my office today, and he has heart disease, and it's pretty bad. Like, he has chest pain, and can't breathe when he walks, or even just walking on a flat surface. So, he has a lot of heart disease. So he did 30 days of water fasting, and everything got better. And then he started eating again, and he gained the weight back, and his chest pain came back again. I'm like, dude, you got to go back and fast again. He goes, I can't. He goes, I did it once and I just can't bring myself to do it again. It's hard. Fasting is hard.
It is hard, but you know what? It's cheap. You'll save money. Something to think about.
You know what? That's what I told him, because he doesn't have insurance. I said, well, a cardiac bypass surgery is going to cost a heck of a lot more than fasting, and it's free. Yeah.
That's true. So we're gonna talk about this today. We're gonna dig in. We're gonna talk about some specifics. Maybe we'll come up with a little challenge at the end of this. I'll probably have to be a part of the challenge, but this will be good. I will tell you, Dr. Saunders has been mentioning the Circadian Code, I believe it's called. I actually just ordered it today. I had to order another one. Yes.
Ooh,
and
good.
So I'm excited about that. But tell us a little bit about that, what you're finding in your latest research concerning fasting. What does fasting even mean? And actually, you know what? Before we even start, Dr. Saunders is not your doctor, so please consult your medical professional before you implement anything that we discuss here today. Okay, now, what have you been learning about fasting?
Wow. Leslie, you're getting better. You sound like a lawyer now. That's
I'm a doctor. I'm a lawyer.
Say all that really fast. Okay, so so fasting. The word fasting means empty stomach. So in the morning when you wake up and you have breakfast, you're breaking your fast. What does it mean that you're breaking your fast? It means you're eating because your stomach is empty, so you're fasting. And it's very clear in the book. He explains that just because you haven't eaten in an hour doesn't mean you're fasting, because if you ate an hour ago, your stomach is not empty yet. So fasting is when you have an empty stomach. And so when you say fasting, that doesn't mean that you haven't eaten in 4 hours, because you may still have a lot of stuff in your stomach. It literally means when the stomach is empty and there's nothing in it, it's like zero. Okay. Why is that important? Because the hormones that are involved in this are incredible. It's like the system is so beautiful and so perfect that when your stomach is empty, nothing in it, then you produce a hormone called ghrelin, Ghrelin. GH stands for growth hormone. REL is releasing. IN is the appellation for hormone. So this is growth hormone, releasing hormone, but it's also the hunger hormone. So when somebody says, my stomach is growling and I'm hungry, they're making ghrelin. Ghrelin makes your stomach growl. And that's what's happening. But why is your stomach growling? It's because your intestines are cleaning out. So what happens is you excrete gallons. You'd be amazed at how much fluid is getting poured into your small intestine, and it's like pushing up and down, And so there's air in there, of course. There's always some air because, you know, when you swallow the spit, the bubbles have air in them, and you're chewing food and you're mixing air with it. And so there's always some air. So as the intestines are cleaning, the air is going gurgle, 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 and you hear that and you go, oh, I must be hungry. I need to eat. But no, that's not the time to eat. You need to let the stomach clear out and clean out, and that's where all the cleaning happens. And a normal small intestine is cleaner than your hands after you use a antimicrobial soap, for example. That if you measure the amount of bacteria per square centimeter on the small intestine compared to what's on your finger after you wash your hands, it's 10 times as much on your hands. Your small intestine is sterile. Why is that important? Because if you have bacteria growing in there, you get something called SIBO. And the bacteria that are growing in there take the nutrients from you. They take the sugar from you. They take the fat from you. They take all the minerals and all the stuff, all the vitamins, all the stuff that you need. Those bacteria are stealing them from you. So the way the system works is so perfect. It's so amazingly perfect. It would even make you believe in God. Just to think of how it was set up so beautifully, so that in your small intestine, it's clean. If you allow it to clean out, it's super clean. And when it's super clean and repaired, in good repair, then you absorb all the nutrients you want from your food, all of them, everything. It's all yours. You have exclusive rights to it, and no bacteria can get it until you're done. When you're done and you absorbed everything you want, all the waste goes where? Down into the large intestine. What's in the large intestine? Huge numbers of bacteria, like hundreds, even thousands of different types of bacteria. And there's this whole ecosystem in there that you wouldn't believe how incredible this ecosystem is in your colon, and it's living on all the waste that you didn't want. If those bacteria get up into your small intestine, they're taking what you do want. That's why that difference is so important. And that's why it's okay to let your stomach growl and let your intestines clean out. Give them time to clean out. And that means both between meals and during a fast. So some people, and I've heard this with my patients sometimes, say, oh yeah, I had to stop fasting because my stomach was growling. No, that's not the right way. You got to let the stomach, the intestines clean up, because the ghrelin, one of the effects of ghrelin, the hunger hormone that makes you growl when your stomach is empty, is to repair the lining of your small intestine so you can absorb nutrients better, so that you don't have leaky gut. So that's what gets rid of the leaky gut. So people who eat and they're still teaching this in schools, by the way, 5 small meals a day with snacks in between, so you never have an empty stomach. If you've ever heard that, that's the worst advice you can ever get. Because why? Because if you never have an empty stomach, you don't make ghrelin, you don't make growth hormone, you don't repair your intestines, you don't clean out your intestines, you don't even repair your brain, you don't repair your joints, and nothing gets better. Everything good that you want to happen to your body, all the cleansing, detoxing, repairing happens while your stomach is empty. And by empty, that means empty. That means there's nothing in there. If you put water in there, guess what? Stomach gets bigger. And what does that mean? Well, the ghrelin is produced by what's called stretch receptors. And so if you stretch your stomach even a little bit, it stops immediately. And it's even worse with calories. So water will stretch your stomach. You'll stop making ghrelin, but within minutes to a half an hour, it'll go out. So water's not a big deal. But if you had even, he says in the book, 1 gram of sugar, 1 gram, that's like a quarter of a teaspoon. A quarter of a teaspoon of sugar will stop the whole process. It'll just block it all off. So you don't clean out, you don't repair, everything stops. So it's like, dang, it really, fasting is really fasting. That means nothing. And people go, well, can I just have a little bit? No. Can I just have some tea with some stevia in it? No. This is really important. So why are we talking about this on a heart disease webinar? Because all that repair happens to your blood vessels as well. Those arteries get nicks in them. Remember, we have the glycocalyx that lines the inside of your arteries, that is just like cat fur. It's super smooth, so you don't have laminar flow of blood through your blood vessels. You got like just the flow. It just flows right through your blood vessels. There's no resistance at all on that glycocalyx. It's just, it's so slippery, it flows right through. If you damage it, what happens? Clots form. Clots form, what's that? That's going to cause the circulation. It's going to slow down your circulation. Well, that's what's happening when you get those clots forming in your arteries of your heart. That has to repair. And man, when you're under an anabolic metabolism, it repairs in seconds. It's so fast. APC cells come in and they pave the whole thing over. So you have this clot that's formed in there. And then the APCs come and they pave it immediately with endothelial cells that then make a glycocalyx. And so to the blood, it's all just like nothing happened. It's just like, you're on the freeway, there's an accident on the freeway. And as soon as that accident happens, things start backing up. But there happens to be a tow truck right there at the moment, and hooks up both cars and takes them out immediately. And the freeway just flows again immediately. That's what happens when you're repairing. Guess what happens when you don't repair? When you have a lot of stress, for example, all the stress hormones, they don't allow APCs to work. So they don't. That's the progenitor cells, they're called, that pave over a clot to allow the blood to flow again. Well, stress stops that from happening. So when you're in catabolic mode, that's the stress mode, you don't repair. And then you get a clot form. And then it starts repairing over, and then you get another clot. And if you look, when they do biopsies of like the clogs in people's arteries, they see layer upon layer upon layer upon layer. And so now your blood vessel, instead of being this big, is just this big because of all this clot that's formed in there. Fasting puts you into anabolic mode, which cleans out the clots and allows that repair to happen quickly, smoothly. And so your freeway is flowing nice. That's why fasting is so important for the heart.
So anabolic is like a good Department of Transportation, moving all the cars, the broken cars, clearing everything up on your highway, bringing the tow trucks. It's a good Department of Transportation.
Yeah, that's what it is. That's what it does. It's amazing.
All right, so let's take this a step further here. Let's say, okay, we like this idea of fasting. We understand what the benefits are. What do we do about it?
Well,
Where do
it's
we
easy.
start?
Don't eat.
Yes, I do understand that.
And don't drink.
And don't drink.
It's so simple that it's hard. Okay, it's so simple, but it's hard. How do we start this though? Let's say we've never fasted before. We eat 4-5 meals a day. What would be a good thing to start with? Maybe, I think we've gone from like a 6-10 reset, we call it, to pretty much a 3-10 reset. I think we're talking a lot more about. Do we start with a program like that? Would you recommend something like that to start with?
Can you explain what the 3-10 reset is?
That means you stop eating at 3 o'clock in the afternoon and you don't eat again until 8 o'clock the next day. So there's a lot of evidence to show that is a better way to do it. That's where people, they reach their ideal body weight. They're cleaning out better. They're having more anabolic mode. It's definitely 6-10 is good. 3-10 is clearly better. So your question of how to start is like the perfect question of how to start, because everybody's always told you eat 5 small meals a day with snacks in between, so you never have an empty stomach. And now we're saying just the opposite. The more you have an empty stomach, the better. And so how does that look? Well, if you start off with, okay, I'm not going to eat after 6 o'clock. Just that's an easy thing. So from 6 o'clock till 8 o'clock the next day is 14 hours. So that's a 14-hour fast, right? Not really 14 hours because your stomach is full the first part of it. So, if it takes 4 hours to empty out, then it's a 10-hour fast, right? And that's a good place to start. And then you move it back and you go 5 o'clock. And that's kind of what I did. I was doing 6 o'clock. 6 o'clock was hard for me because I barely finished work at 6 o'clock. And then I got to rush home and then I don't get dinner. And it's really a pain. So then I was going off 5 o'clock. I'll have something, a snack at 5 o'clock. And you know what? I just kept moving it back. And now I'm at, well, technically for the year, this is my New Year's resolution is 3 o'clock. But lately I've been kind of pushing it to 4 o'clock. So, but yeah, 3 o'clock. So 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. Is it's an ideal place to be. And it's not that hard. You can start right away. I've had people fasting, do a 30-day fast, like they're eating every day, all day long. And they just go, okay, I'm done. Starting today, I'm not going to eat until next month is the next time I eat. And I've had people do that and they're perfectly okay with it. Our bodies are made to do that. The first few days, 3 days, 4 days, people get hypoglycemic episodes. And I've had a lot of people say, oh, I can't do that. I get hypoglycemia. It's okay. Just tell yourself when you're getting oh, that's hypoglycemia. I've passed out several times. One time I was giving a presentation to someone. I'm standing up there and I passed out. Everyone's like, oh, I think he died. No, after a minute or two, I popped up. No, I'm okay. I'm fasting. It's okay. And so it's okay to get hypoglycemia. It's just that's kind of the process of your body saying, oh, I need to switch to fat burning. And because sometimes you can get your blood sugar can drop and you don't switch over to the fat burning metabolism and keep your energy up. Now I can fast or not or anytime because I'm so used to burning fat and not eating that if I stop eating, my blood sugar starts dropping out. I immediately switch to fat burning and I don't even get a hypoglycemic episode at all. But I've been there and it has happened a lot. So, but it's okay. It's okay. You just push through it. Your body gets used to it. They had a study on rats where they got them hypoglycemic for, well, it was 3 days. On the 4th day, the rats were up running around and their blood sugar was still 40. They kept them at 40 this whole time and they were really hypoglycemic. And what they found was that they had 10 times the number of glucose transport proteins in their brain. So their brain's getting really good energy all the time now because they had that hypoglycemia for a while. So that's the part of the training is you've had so much abundance for such a long time. You need that fasting, the famine part to put things back into perspective and back into normal.
So how important is the food that you're eating during the day?
Okay, that's a great question because the research is so mixed on this. If you're living on Taco Bell, I pick Taco Bell because it's the one with the most MSG. And it's kind of the worst junk food you can have. And if you lived on that and limited your time, you have time restricted eating to like 8 hours. The studies that we have indicate that it does not matter what you eat. if you restrict the amount of time. But you have to be really careful to restrict the amount of time. When they were doing the rats, for example, rats will cheek food and save it for later. They'll hide it wherever they can in their cages and everything. And so the researchers had to go in and make sure that they hadn't cheeked the food. When they stopped them, they were, when they were doing the 8 hours of feeding, they took away all the food at 8 hours. So they went around the cage and took away all the stuff that they were hiding and all that stuff, so that they actually had fasting for that full 16 hours. So so you have to be really careful and really restrict it to 8 hours. And if you do that, the types of food you eat is a lot less important. It's just like, yeah, junk food's okay, and you can have sugar. And in one study on the rats, they just gave them fat and sugar. Just, you can have all the fat and sugar you want. And as long as they restricted the time and they had that fasting period of 16 hours, they were good. They were good.
So no water after that either.
No, they were allowed water.
Okay. And so would you recommend water? I mean, we talked about this a little bit, but what would you recommend for everyone as they're starting?
Yeah. During the 16 hours, have water. Drink when you're thirsty. The other studies have shown that long-term fasting, like if you're doing 3 days of fasting, no food, no water is better than no food. Remember, the ghrelin stops whenever you put water in your stomach too. So if you drink some water, and because you're thirsty, that's okay. It's going to be gone in a half an hour, and you're going to be back to fasting again. However, those people that have those big bottles of water that are sipping water all day long, that's a problem. Yeah, there you go. You're one of them. Yeah, there you go.
One glass.
Yeah, I don't feel it a lot, but okay, this is interesting. And then how important is the sleep portion of this, or bedtime?
Okay, then the sleep is really important too. So let's see. Sleep is the most important. Food is the second most important for the circadian rhythm. So it is, if you vary your sleep time, even an hour, even 1 hour, they've done this with the rats and with people. So crossing one time zone into the next time zone and having a 1 hour change in time affects your circadian rhythm dramatically. It affects how you digest your food. It affects how well you sleep. It affects your heart rate variability. All of the important markers for health drop when you vary your sleep schedule. So that sleep schedule needs to be like, when you go to bed at 10, it's 10 o'clock every night.
Wow.
Yeah. Really
so grade yourself, guys. Grade yourself on how you're doing some of these things. Are you someone who goes to bed at the same time every night? Let us know. I'm just curious. I have found during this Christmas break, when my kids have been home, I don't even know what day it is at this point. It's getting weird. But before that, when you're on a consistent schedule, I mean, things are a little bit easier. How are you doing with fasting? Are you already someone who fasts? How about eating? Will it be hard for you to stop eating after 3, or maybe you're going to try 6? Wherever you want to start, let us know. I'd be curious to see how you feel about that. This is good. This is good information.
I have a question. So you mentioned that when the rats were hypoglycemic, they had 10 times the amount of glucose receptors in the brain. How does that work? Like, one of the questions I see, how do you repair your brain? But is that because it's feeding from all the fat in your body? So you've actually switched to fat burning, and that's what fuels your brain?
Okay. Yes, fat does fuel your brain to some parts of your brain, but there are parts of your brain that require glucose and can't run on anything but glucose. So, those things, like your memory, for example, it's pretty easy to lose memory as you have fewer and fewer glucose receptors from people that have insulin resistance, for example. What happened was they measured the number of glucose receptors at their transport proteins, and then after they were hypoglycemic, they had multiplied that by 10 times. So what that means is, because glucose can't cross the blood-brain barrier, it's blocked. So they have to be, each glucose molecule has to be individually brought into the brain. And when you have few of those that are bringing them into the brain, you're only getting, hundreds of molecules a second in there. But when you have 10 times that, you're getting thousands of molecules per second into your brain. So you're just getting a lot of glucose into the brain, so that there's a lot more energy available to the nerve cells.
And how does fasting make that happen?
Because fasting increases the number of the transport proteins that are bringing it across the blood-brain barrier. So now you have a lot more, instead of just 100 that are bringing the sugar. Now you have 1,000 that are bringing the sugar in. So you have just 10 times more glucose can be brought in to the brain.
Does that mean fasting can help reverse dementia?
Yes.
Wow.
Yes, absolutely. In fact, dementia, Dr. Dale Bredesen from UCLA wrote a book about reversing Alzheimer's. And what he found was Alzheimer's is a metabolic problem. And the metabolism was really important. And guess what he came up with? Everything we're talking about. Fasting, time-restricted eating, sleeping on a regular basis. And then he added, of course, in exercise and some supplements. And that, he showed 29 out of 32 cases reversed Alzheimer's disease. So, yes, the answer is yes, that does.
Wow.
Okay, so lots of questions coming in, many asking the same thing. What if I eat until 7, or I don't eat right away in the morning and I eat at noon? How important are these time restraints or constraints? Why do those matter? Why have we set those times?
I know, you know what? And that is, it's not based on you, it's based on circadian rhythm. And that's where the issue comes in. It's not something that you have the option of setting. You can't say, well, I'll just move my sleep time from midnight to 8 o'clock in the morning. It doesn't work that way. Your circadian rhythm really is based on light hitting your eyes. So daytime, day to night. It's also based on eating, your eating. And the schedule is very important. It's very important because you don't make the human growth hormone that's going to repair your body unless your cortisol is at its lowest point. And it reaches its lowest point at around 10 o'clock at night. If you push through that and you are, you're like, oh, I got to stay up for a little while. You're tired. You want to stay up for a little while and you get a second wind. You know what your second wind is? Mm-hmm. Cortisol and adrenaline and all of the things that are going to stop you from making human growth hormone so that you can't get into anabolic metabolism. So now it's midnight and sure, you can sleep, but you're not going to be anabolic. You're not going to repair. And this study has been done with for a lot of different ways and a lot of different people. And they looked at nurses that do shift, that do night, that they work every single night. And they say, I love the night shift. I sleep better during the day and I'm awake at night and it's quieter during the night. And the night shift is perfect for me. And guess what? Those people never do. They never get anabolic. What about people like they looked at police officers that do shift work? And it's called shift work syndrome. Mm-hmm. Where people that do shift work, they are inconsistent with their sleep. Like they'll work the evening shift for a while, maybe a week or a month or whatever, and then they'll work the night shift, and then they'll work the day shift, and they rotate around. And shift work is not healthy because during those times that you're working the evening or the night shift, so you get off at 11 o'clock, you're home by midnight, you have a little snack or something, and go to bed by 1 o'clock in the morning. you're not getting anabolic. You're not repairing your body. So that's a big question. Of course, you guys aren't the only ones to ask that question. The researchers are like, wait a minute, how important is this time? And it turns out it's important. It's really important. So 2 things that are important. Number 1, going to bed by 10 o'clock every night. That's important. Number 2, well, stay in bed for 8 hours. You don't actually have to sleep the whole time. It's okay if you don't sleep. Just rest for 8 hours. Number 3, eat in the morning and not at night. Eat breakfast, skip dinner. Those are the only 3 timing things that are really important.
And are you specific on eating times in the morning? Does that matter?
Yeah, well, yes, in the sense of being consistent. So right around 8 o'clock. So you should be getting up around 6. It's best to wait about an hour or a little more, hour to 2. So eating between 7 and 8 is great. And then, hey, that rhymes. And then not eating again, getting an empty stomach to allow your stomach and intestines and your pancreas to reset before you add in another meal at 3 o'clock in the afternoon.
Awesome. All right. So how many of you guys are ready to take on this challenge in some form? I think we got to do it. We got to do it. Anders Barton says, oh boy. All right, Anders, we're doing this.
Leslie and I were talking about it before the webinar started. We might do some of this fasting thing.
Yeah. And so we're going to follow up with you guys next week. So try this. Pick your 6 or 3, whatever time you're going to stop eating. If you can do 3, that'll be even better. I think you'll see better results. But do it whatever you need to do. I know that it's difficult. I know our schedules are difficult. I always say, or hear people say, but I go out with my friends at night, or we go out for dinner, and try it. It's just short term. We're going to see how it goes. And then you can make decisions for your health from there.
Imagine.
Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. No, I was just, there's so much going on about the New Year's and all these resolutions. And I think I read someone like, imagine 21 days that you actually transform your life. You can become someone different just by committing to something in 21 days. So you may not go out with your friends for 21 days, but imagine the person you'll be after, following some fasting, giving up some, food timing and bedtimes, and you'd be a new person. That's worth it.
Yes, a new person. Literally, you will be a new person mentally, emotionally, spiritually, physically. You know what? Every spiritual tradition from the beginning of time has included fasting. Physically, your body regenerates during that time. You will be amazed. Your arthritis will go away. All of your inflammation will go away. Roy's gum disease went away. It is really like life-changing, just like Cheryl said, in so many ways. The evidence in both rats and humans and every single animal, they tested it in spiders and worms and dogs and monkeys. And in every case, the improvement is like night and day dramatic. It's big.
Awesome. All right, guys, we're serious. Let's make this happen. Do what you can this week. Set a goal. We're going to follow up with you next week. We want to hear how it goes for you. Someone did ask, Doreen had asked, what about your medications and vitamins when you're fasting?
Oh, thank you. Thank you. That's a great question. Okay. Think of vitamins as food. So supplements are just food. So when you're fasting, you don't take any of those. That's just food. There are some things that you're doing for treatment that you need during the fast. So if you're treating something, I have somebody that had a genetic problem where they have an enzyme that doesn't work right and they need extra vitamin B2. Okay, that's treatment. And he's going to need his energy systems to function well during the fast. So he needs the vitamin B2 supplement. So, and then in his case, that's treatment. And so he continues that. Certain medications, of course, if you're on epileptic medications or you're on certain medications like thyroid. You need your thyroid gland to work while you're fasting, so you stay on that. But there are certain things that you want to be very careful of. If you're not eating, then your diabetes medications, if you're on them, can cause hypoglycemia. So be careful of that. If you're on blood pressure medications while you're fasting, your blood pressure will generally just come down to normal. And if you're on medications and the medications can push it too low, and you can get you can get low blood pressure and dizziness and falls. So that you have to be careful of that. And then the other thing is cholesterol medications while you're fasting, or even in time restricted feeding. Cholesterol comes down to normal, and you definitely don't need the cholesterol medication. So those are the things to think about while you're fasting. And you may need to discuss that with your doctor and say, okay, I'm going to do a fast. Which medications do I actually have to take? And so it may be different depending.
And remember too, you're still eating during the day. So you can still take some of those with your food during the day.
Correct.
It's just the ones that you normally are taking at night that you may want to, do what Dr. Saunders had said, or talk with your provider. Okay. Although I don't know many of them who are going to be excited about you fasting. I know what I've been told. So good luck.
Isn't that funny?
Yes. Okay.
The single best thing you can do for your health, your doctor either doesn't know about it or is against it.
Yes. I actually had a really good doctor that I met, and he was actually fasting. He was of a different religion than I was, but he was going through his seasons of fasting too. And he was like, this is the best thing I could ever do for my health. So you should do it too. And I was like, you're awesome. Okay. Let's see, David, I'm going to get into some of these questions. If you guys can post them in the Q&A, it's a little bit easier for me to manage those over there. But David says, in regards to the book, The Circadian Code, is that what it was called? Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. It seems the author underestimates diet in many parts of the book. And, we had kind of just talked about that too, how diet maybe isn't quite as important as we thought. But did you find that in the book as well, Dr. Saunders?
Yeah, no, well, the book is about the circadian rhythm, which is the sleep-wake cycles. And so he talks a lot about the sleep and stuff. But he has one chapter of time-restricted eating, TRE, where he goes into it extensively. But yeah, there's only one chapter on that. The book is about the sleep-wake cycles and repair mechanisms and all that stuff. So, but that one chapter on eating, he explains it pretty well.
Interesting. Okay.
Is time restricted eating the same as intermittent fasting?
Yes.
Okay. I think that's the new buzz term then.
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw someone had a question. It said something about TRE, and I was like, I don't know what that is. So good to know. All right. What is clogs in arteries? Is it a clot or plaque or cholesterol buildup?
Oh, that's a great question. Okay, we have several webinars on this. But bottom line, it's a blood clot. It's a blood clot. So there's damage to the arteries. Whenever there's damage to the lining of the arteries, a clot forms so that you don't bleed to death. And so that clot forms on there. And if it doesn't repair and dissolve, and the clot dissolve inside there, then it makes a little indentation in your artery, and then that's more likely to get another clot. And if you get a clot building on that, then it can really diminish the amount of area in the artery for that the blood has to go through. So yes, it starts with clots.
Okay, someone had asked what episode this will be because they want to watch it again, and this will be episode 36. Just taking my notes here so I remember this. So 36, that'll be up soon. If you go to bartonwebinar.com, there is a link to our YouTube channel, and that's where you will find all of these webinars. We record them and put them there. So, okay, here we go. So many questions. This must be a hot topic. We got lots of questions. Ted says, how long do I fast to get the most results?
Okay, so this research has been done extensively. What's the ideal amount of time to fast? And it seems from Dr. Walter Longo at USC. He's a specialist in longevity. a researcher in longevity, and he's looked at fasting a lot. And so he has a 5-day kit. He says the 5 days is the optimum amount. If you're no food, no water, 3 days is the optimum amount. But if you're doing like a bone broth cleanse, or you're doing a fasting kit that has these little nut bars and stuff that you eat in them, then you're not really fasting. And so the 5 days is better. But a true eating nothing fast, 3 days is like your optimum amount. After that, it's still good. Gets better and better, but just not as much as those first 3 days. And that's what we saw with the rats too. Remember, I told you about the rats who had hypoglycemia for 3 days, and after 3 days, they were just normal rats running around. Why? It takes 3 days for those enzymes to change from sugar burning to fat burning, from having the lower level of glucose transport proteins in the brain to the higher level. It takes about 3 days to initiate all this repair stuff. So a 3-day fast once a month, that's what I do. And that's why I do it. 3 days once a month.
First weekend of the month, usually, isn't it?
First weekend of the month. Yeah, that's it.
Is
It's coming
that this
up.
weekend? I was
Yeah,
like, yeah,
it's
who
coming
wants
up.
to join Dr. Saunders this week? Three-day fast.
Yeah. Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I eat Monday. So I eat Friday morning. No, I don't eat Friday morning. I eat Thursday, actually evening, and then I eat Monday morning.
Wow. Someone
Okay.
earlier I
Okay.
asked, what about coffee during a fast?
Oh, good question. Okay. Black coffee has been actually black tea, coffee have been looked at, and they don't induce insulin. So for people that are insulin resistant, actually black tea and black coffee are okay, as long as there's nothing in them. Like I said, even a 1 gram of sugar is enough to just block your whole fast. It doesn't ruin the whole thing, but it shuts down all of the systems that are repairing. So but water's okay, black tea, black coffee. And there were a few other things that they said. Lemon juice was interesting. I had sugar in it, and I've always said, no, don't use lemon juice. But the sour taste, it doesn't induce insulin, apparently, from the research. And then there was anything bitter. So, like coffee, that kind of stuff.
Any thoughts or changes to fasting recommendations based on someone's age?
No, that is really important because we have often been told, oh, you're old, therefore you shouldn't fast, or you're pregnant, therefore you shouldn't fast, or you're whatever, have this hypoglycemia, therefore you shouldn't fast. Actually, do you know what repairs the body? Fasting. Do you know if you're older, how you're going to repair your body best? Fasting. It's just the reality is so different than what we would expect. And we were told things like with the circadian rhythm that, oh, I'm older, I don't need as much sleep. Yes, you do need as much sleep. You need 8 hours of sleep. Yeah, you're getting less sleep because you have all these issues of, oh, I have to get up and pee 5 times a night. Or, as you get older, there are issues that show up that prevent you from sleeping. But that doesn't mean you need less sleep. You actually still need restorative sleep in order to maintain your youth. So don't assume that as you age, you're going to decline in function. That's not a real thing. That's something that we made up in our society. Because why? Well, because as we age, we exercise less. And I've been fighting that so hard. That is so hard, guys. When I was young, I was going to the gym. I was running long distance. Man, I did a half marathon averaging a 7.5-minute mile. And when I was in college, and now I have been trying to get a 10-minute mile. I cannot break the 10-minute mile. It's hard. It's hard. I've been sitting for so long. I've lost it. And so I'm working up to it. I'm doing 3 miles a day. But we don't exercise as much, so we're going to lose our muscle mass. We lose our muscle mass, then we're going to lose our metabolism. You lose your metabolism, then it's like a domino effect. Boom, 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 boom. Everything's falling down based on partly the effect of not exercising, and partly the effect of eating on a irregular basis and eating, 12 to 15 hours a day. That's what, when they studied, that's what they said. Most people eat between 12 and 15 hours a day. So all of the things that we naturally do cause us to age because we're not repairing every night. We don't go into anabolic metabolism. So if you maintain your anabolic metabolism, your age should be like, you should just not age. As your years go on, your functionality should stay the same all the time.
Love it. That's a goal. Awesome. Connie said, been watching my iron since I've been diagnosed as being anemic. So the last blood test for the iron is that I have plenty of iron stored, but only have a 10% saturation. What do you think is happening? I know you aren't my doctor, but I value your input very much.
Okay. Saturation means that you have an iron binding capacity. That means that's a lot of proteins that hold on to iron. Iron is really irritating. It causes a lot of oxygen-free radicals and damages everything. It damages DNA. It kills cells. Iron is bad. So your body knows iron is bad. So you have a lot of proteins around that whenever they see iron, they hold on to it. I'm not letting you go. And they just grab onto the iron. That's the iron binding capacity. And so you have a really high iron binding capacity. You have normal amounts of iron, but you have a lot of proteins that are grabbing onto iron everywhere. And that usually means stress. When you're stressed for any reason, let's say you fell off a building and you have a bunch of internal bleeding. Internal bleeding means there's iron getting out. All this blood is getting out of your blood vessels into your tissues where it's not supposed to be. And so you need a whole bunch of protein, iron binding proteins, to grab all that iron so it's not damaging all your tissues. Anytime you have stress, you make more of these iron binding proteins. So the best thing I can assess from the little bit of information I have is that you probably have some extra stress that's producing a lot of iron binding capacity. So your problem is not an absorption of iron problem. Your problem is not your red blood cells or your bone marrow isn't working right. It's just that you're grabbing onto the iron and holding on to it.
I like this. Julie is asking, if I start fasting, can I get off my 5 milligrams of blood pressure medicine?
If you start fasting, it is very likely you won't need blood pressure medication. Very likely. The studies, if you read the book, the Circadian Code, he says, that the blood pressure came down to normal in everyone. It was not some people. It was like universal.
Lots of comments here about doing shift type work. David was working for the railroad, which was worse than shift work, he said. Julie traveled, bedtime was 1 hour ahead, and it just really messed with her eating time. And that's just real. So imagine, getting on a good schedule and doing this, you could see how it could make a big impact.
So that's an important, I'm glad everybody brought that up. Is anybody perfect? Does anybody have a bedtime at 10 o'clock every night? Does anybody not travel to another time zone? How many of us are so provincial that we stay in the same place, stay at the same job, working our 9 to 5, not eating after 6? How many people do that these days? Well, that's not realistic. So what's really good about Sachin Panda's book is he explains that. He says in there, I'm not perfect. I travel a lot. I cross time zones. This is not an easy thing to do. And he's like, just do the best you can if you stay with your schedule as much as possible. So let me give you an example for traveling. I went to Europe a few weeks ago. My daughter ran the marathon. And so how do we do that? Where we fly there, we check in, and the next day she has to run a marathon. What time is it for her? Well, it's a 10-hour time difference. So she's running in the middle of the night. You know, she's running her marathon for her on her time in the middle of the night. How do we fix that? Okay, it's not that hard. Fasting. Remember I said the light was important, the sleeping is important, that what was it? The food was the second most important thing. You can fix your circadian rhythm pretty quickly with the food. What you do is you fast for 24 hours before your morning meal in your new place. So when we went to Greece, it's 10 hours. So we fasted from the morning time, their time, for 24 hours till the morning time. So the first morning we got there was our first meal after not eating for 24 hours. That wakes up the circadian rhythm and gets you started right away. So she ran her marathon, no problem. I got pictures. It was great. So that's a way sort of that you can work around it when you're flying around, for example. You just fast so that you're using, because you can't use the rhythm of your sleep, then you have to go to the second best, which is the fasting or the eating. And so you fast for 24 hours, and your morning meal, remember, is what starts your circadian rhythm. So so that puts you right on, and it works for me every time.
All right. So many questions in here, you guys. Okay. Someone had asked, they have been listening to Dr. Mindy Pelz, who deals totally with women, and she emphasizes that women are completely different than men. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah. In fact,
Okay, in terms of fasting, and
No,
maybe
in
in the
terms of
circadian
fasting.
rhythm.
Yeah. So there, I'm in the middle of a book right now that is fasting for women, called Fast Like a Girl.
I had that one too. Oh, that's fine.
Yeah. And so it is different. In a way, it's different in a way, in the hormone way, and that women are going through a series of cycles. Like men have one cycle, and women have a bunch of cycles going on at the same time. They have a progesterone cycle, an estrogen cycle, and then their circadian rhythm cycle, and their adrenal glands, and so their adrenal glands on estrogen are different than their adrenal glands on progesterone, and all of that stuff, because it's constant changing. However, yes, but not really for this. For our purposes here, what we're talking about: sleeping every night at 10 o'clock, don't eat after 3 o'clock, fast, eat in the morning and not in the evening, and fast your 16 hours a day. That is going to stay pretty much the same. So as far as long-term fast and stuff like that, yeah, that all going to change. But as to what time of your cycle you're going to fast and all that kind of stuff, women are going to do it differently. But the daily circadian rhythm that your adrenal glands run off of, that's what we're talking about here. So that stays the same.
Okay, Victor says, it is my understanding that plaque buildup in the arteries is the body's response to repairing weakening artery walls. Wouldn't taking spirulina maybe jeopardize those weak points, or spirulinol? I don't know what that, I'm not sure. Wouldn't taking this jeopardize those weak points from the reduction of plaque spironol removes? Spironol.
I don't know what that is. Spironolactone? Is that it? No.
I said spirulina, so that wasn't it either. Wouldn't taking it jeopardize those weak points from the reduction of plaque? I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
So plaque is clots. That's what it is. Plaque is clots. And so what's in there? Well, red blood cells, cholesterol, white blood cells, everything that's in a clot, all the fibrins, the fibrin that forms clots, that's all part of it. And your body will dissolve it. And that will and it gets paved over, and then it gets dissolved after it's paved over, and the freeway's moving again. The repair is done after everything's moving through. So anything that inhibits the repair, yes, that's a problem. Anything that causes clots to form, yeah, that's a problem too. So that's where all the inflammatory, we talk about inflammation causing heart disease. Why? Because it increases clots. That's what it does.
Okay, this is a really good question for those of you who are ready to implement some of this fasting. How much can you eat? Can you eat a greater amount of food between the time that you are eating, since you'll be fasting? What do you think?
Okay, so yeah, he talks about that in the book too. There's a lot of research on this too. So it seems like the 8-hour window gives you enough time and like 2 meals a day, so you can have 2 meals. That works pretty well, and people do eat less because they're not eating in the evening. So can you eat more during that time? Well, if you do eat more, then you tend to gain weight and have similar issues. So it was when the researchers had done with the rats, for example, they gave them the same amount of calories in the 8-hour window, and the rats that could eat anytime they wanted all day long, day and night. They all ate the same number of calories, but the ones that were eating all day were gaining weight and were less healthy. Even though they ate exactly the same number of calories, the ones in the 8-hour window were healthier and lost weight. So can you eat more? Yes, but there was one study that there was a 4-hour window of eating, and they found that people ate so much more that it wasn't really healthy. So yes, but
Yes. Okay, what an awesome webinar. I know there's some more questions we haven't gotten to yet, but Dr. Saunders, we thank you for being with us. We'll see you next week. This was so good.
Very good.
See ya.
Yes.
Bye.
And so guys, we're excited to hear how you do this week. Decide what your goal is, as far as what time you want to be done eating, and let us know how it goes. For some of you, the hardest part is going to be going to bed at 10, For some of you, it will be the hardest to stop eating at night, and everyone's just a little bit different. So we just can't wait to hear how you guys do. I think this will be really fun to hear back from you guys. We've talked about fasting a lot, so here's your opportunity to really go for it and let us know.
What are you planning? You going to share?
Yeah, I think I'm going to plan for sure today. I'm going to be doing 3. I'm going to be done at 3. I need to kind of look through my week. I think 3 will be okay.
Yeah, I'm thinking the same thing. I'm maybe fasting 3 days this weekend. I don't know, but definitely next week, finish eating by 3. That's my goal.
Yes. Yes. And I think this will be good. It'll be a really good thing. Once you start to do it, it becomes easy. So.
Yeah.
All right, you guys, this was fun. We'll see you next week. Check out bartonwebinar.com and use code webinar25. It's one word. If you want to purchase anything there, you'll get 25% off. We'll see you guys next week. Thank you, Cheryl. Bye-bye.